Part 2, Block 1. The night Alejandro and I walked away from Kazan's body, hand in hand with a hard drive that could dismantle an entire criminal organization, I thought the most difficult choices were behind me. How naive I was. Dawn was breaking as we reached the safe house. A penthouse apartment in the city with floor-to-ceiling windows and security that would make most government facilities envious. I stood by the window, watching the city wake up below me, feeling like I was observing a world I no longer belonged to. "You should rest," Alejandro said, handing me a steaming cup of coffee. His voice was gentle, but I could see the tension in his shoulders, the wariness in his eyes that never fully disappeared. "I'm not sure I remember how," I admitted, accepting the cup. Our fingers brushed, sending that now familiar electricity through me. 3 days had passed since I'd made my choice, since I'd told him I was his. We'd been in constant motion, moving between safe houses, evading potential threats from what remained of Kazan's organization. "Try," he said, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "I need to make some calls, set things in motion with the evidence. When I'm done, we'll talk about what comes next." What comes next? The words hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. I nodded, too exhausted to argue, and retreated to the bedroom, though I doubted sleep would come easily. I was wrong. The moment my head hit the pillow, darkness claimed me. I dreamed of my father, standing at the end of the dock at Lake Sherwood, fishing rod in hand, smiling as he had before the weight of his secrets crushed him. "You found it," he said in my dream. "You found the truth. Why didn't you tell me?" I asked him, the question that had haunted me since reading his letter. "To protect you," he replied, his image beginning to fade, "as he is protecting you now." I woke with a start, disoriented in the unfamiliar room. The digital clock on the nightstand showed 6:17 p.m. I'd slept for almost 12 hours. The space beside me was empty, the sheets cool to the touch. Alejandro hadn't joined me. After a quick shower, I ventured out to find him. The penthouse was silent except for the low murmur of voices coming from behind a closed door, Alejandro's temporary office. I hesitated, not wanting to interrupt, but needing to see him, to ground myself in the reality we now shared. Before I could decide, the door opened, and Marco emerged, his expression as impassive as ever. He nodded to me respectfully. "Ms. Morgan." "Ellie," I corrected automatically. "Just Ellie." A ghost of a smile flickered across his face. "Boss is waiting for you." I found Alejandro standing by his own window, phone in hand, the city lights reflecting in the glass before him. He turned when I entered, and the intensity in his gaze made my breath catch. "How did you sleep?" he asked, slipping the phone into his pocket. "Better than I expected," I admitted. "Any news?" He gestured to the leather couch. "Sit, please." Something in his tone made my stomach tighten. I sat, and he joined me, close enough that our knees nearly touched. "I've started the process," he said. "The evidence on the hard drive is even more extensive than we anticipated. Not just financial records, but recordings, photographs, documentation of everything from money laundering to human trafficking operations. Your father was thorough. He was an accountant," I said softly. "Details were his specialty." Alejandro nodded. "I've had my most trusted people working to decrypt and organize everything. Tomorrow, select pieces will be delivered to 3 different federal prosecutors, people who can be trusted to act on it without exposing my involvement or yours. And Kazan's organization, already fracturing. News of his death has created a power vacuum. His lieutenants are scrambling, suspicious of each other. By the time they realize what's happening, it will be too late." Relief washed over me. "So it's working. My father's sacrifice wasn't for nothing." Alejandro took my hand, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. "There's something else we need to discuss." The seriousness in his voice made me tense. "What is it?" "Once this process begins, there's no stopping it. The fallout will be extensive. People will go to prison. Others will try to run. Some might try to silence anyone they perceive as a threat." His dark eyes held mine, including you. "I thought Kazan was the threat. Kazan was the head. But the body still thrashes." He squeezed my hand. "Which means we need to discuss your safety. Your future, our future, I corrected. A smile touched his lips. Yes, our future. He paused. I meant what I said at the lake. You can walk away, start fresh somewhere new. I have connections, resources. You could have a new identity, a new life, far from all of this. Without you, I said, understanding what he wasn't saying. It would be safer. I pulled my hand from his, anger flaring. Is that what you want? To send me away after everything we've been through? What I want, he said carefully, is irrelevant. What matters is what's best for you. Don't I get a say in that? I stood, needing to move, to put distance between us. I made my choice, Alejandro. I chose you. This path. Us. You made that choice in the aftermath of trauma, adrenaline, revelations about your parents. He remained seated, watching me pace. I need to be certain it's what you truly want, not a decision made in the heat of the moment. I stopped, turning to face him. Do you regret it? Kissing me? Telling me I'm yours? He stood then, crossing the space between us with predatory grace. Never. The word was almost a growl, but I need you to understand what being mine truly means. The life I lead, the world I inhabit. It's not like anything you've known. I'm not naive, I said. I know who you are, what you do. Do you? He stepped closer. I'm trying to legitimize my business interests, yes, but there are aspects of my world that will never be entirely clean. People will fear me, hate me, try to destroy me, and they'll use whatever leverage they can find. His hand came up to cut my face. Including you. I leaned into his touch despite my frustration. I'm stronger than you think. I know exactly how strong you are. His eyes darkened. It's one of the many reasons I can't seem to let you go, even when I know I should. Then don't. I covered his hand with mine. Don't push me away in some misguided attempt to protect me. I've spent 10 years believing a lie about my parents' death. I've been alone, working myself to exhaustion, trying to build some semblance of meaning in my life. For the first time, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Alejandro studied me, searching my face for doubt, for hesitation. Whatever he saw there must have satisfied him, because he nodded slowly. All right. His thumb traced my lower lip. But we do this my way. You'll need security, training, to understand the rules of my world. I can handle that. A shadow crossed his face. There's something else. Before he could continue, his phone rang. He checked the screen, his expression hardening. I need to take this. I nodded, stepping back as he answered. His conversation was brief, in rapid Italian that I couldn't follow, but I didn't need to understand the words to recognize the tension that radiated from him. When he hung up, his expression was grim. What is it? I asked. The safe house where we were keeping Petrov's body has been compromised. Someone got to him. He was already dead, I said, confused. Yes, but now his body is missing, along with any evidence that might have been recovered from it. Alejandro ran a hand through his hair, a rare display of agitation. It means someone in my organization is feeding information to what remains of Kazan's network. The implications hit me like a physical blow. A traitor? Yes. His eyes met mine. Which means our timeline just accelerated. We need to move the evidence immediately, get you somewhere even more secure. Where? Italy. My family's ancestral home outside Naples. It's a fortress, and the local authorities are amenable to our presence. He took my hands in his. I was going to suggest this as a more long-term solution, but now we don't have the luxury of time. Italy. Halfway across the world from everything I'd ever known, my job, my apartment, the few friends I had, all left behind. For how long? I asked. Until it's safe. A few months, perhaps longer. His grip tightened. I know it's asking a lot, an understatement. But what choice did I have? If someone in Alejandro's organization had betrayed him, nowhere in this city was truly safe for either of us. What about the hospital? My patients? A leave of absence can be arranged. Medical emergency, family issues, whatever story works best. I took a deep breath, trying to process everything. When do we leave? Tonight. Private jet from a small airfield outside the city. He stepped closer, his hands moving to frame my face. "I'm sorry, Ellie. This isn't how I wanted things to unfold between us." The sincerity in his voice melted my resistance. I leaned forward, resting my forehead against his chest, feeling his heartbeat steady and strong beneath my cheek. "I guess I'll finally get to use my passport," I murmured, attempting humor despite the gravity of the situation. His arms came around me, holding me close. "I'll give you the world, Ellie Morgan. Every beautiful corner of it." I believed him. Despite everything, the danger, the uncertainty, the complete upheaval of my life, I believed him. In his arms, I felt something I hadn't experienced since before my parents died. I felt like I was home. "I should pack," I said, pulling back reluctantly. "Already taken care of." He brushed a kiss against my temple. "Marco arranged for everything you'll need. Anything else can be purchased in Italy. Of course, in Alejandro's world, problems were solved with efficient precision. Money was no object, and the normal constraints that governed most people's lives simply didn't apply. "There's one more thing," I said, remembering my father's locket still hanging around my neck. "I want to visit my parents' graves before we go. To say goodbye." A shadow crossed Alejandro's face. "It's not safe. Please." I touched the locket. "I need this closure, especially now that I know the truth." He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "We'll go at dusk. 15 minutes, no longer, with security. Thank you." I reached up, pressing my lips to his in a gentle kiss that quickly deepened, his arms tightening around me as though he could shield me from the world through sheer force of will. When we broke apart, both breathing harder, his eyes were dark with desire and something more complex, a fierce protectiveness that should have frightened me but instead made me feel safer than I had in years. "From now on, you're mine." He repeated his words from our first meeting, but this time they weren't a declaration of ownership. They were a promise, a vow. "And you're mine," I replied, sealing our pact with another kiss, knowing that whatever came next, we would face it together. The cemetery was quiet in the fading light, tombstones casting long shadows across the carefully manicured grass. I knelt before my parents' shared grave, tracing their names etched in cold marble. James and Catherine Morgan, beloved parents. No mention of how they died, of the secrets that had ultimately cost them their lives. "I know the truth now," I whispered, the locket heavy around my neck. "I understand why you did what you did, Dad. I forgive you." Alejandro stood a respectful distance away, giving me privacy, while his men formed a perimeter around the area. The weight of his presence was both comforting and a stark reminder of how much my life had changed. I placed the white roses I'd brought on the grave, rising to my feet. "Goodbye," I said softly. "I hope wherever you are, you're at peace." As I turned away, a flicker of movement caught my eye. A figure ducking behind a mausoleum 30 yards away. My heart rate spiked, but before I could react, Alejandro was beside me, his hand at the small of my back, guiding me firmly toward the waiting car. "Did you see?" I began. "Yes," he cut me off, his voice low. "Keep walking. Don't look back." Marco had the car door open, and Alejandro all but pushed me inside, sliding in after me. The other security men materialized from their positions, moving with practiced efficiency toward their vehicles. "Was it them? Kazan's people?" I asked, as we pulled away from the cemetery. Alejandro's jaw was tight. "Possibly. Or it could be federal agents." The hard drive contained evidence that implicated several high-ranking officials. If they've been tipped off about what's coming, they might be watching us. The drive to the airfield was tense, with frequent route changes and checks for surveillance. I found myself scanning every car that came too close, every face that turned in our direction. Was this to be my life now? Constant vigilance, always looking over my shoulder? "You're thinking too loudly," Alejandro said, taking my hand. "Is it always like this for you?" His thumb traced patterns on my palm. "Not always. Once we're established in Italy, things will calm down. We'll find a new normal. Normal." The word seemed absurd given our circumstances, yet I clung to it like a lifeline. The private airfield was dark except for minimal runway lighting. The sleek jet waiting for us looked otherworldly, a gleaming bird of prey ready to whisk us away to a new life. As we approached the stairs, Alejandro paused, turning to Marco. "You have your instructions," Marco nodded. "Everything will be handled according to plan. The prosecutors will receive their packages at precisely 9 a.m. tomorrow. And the other matter? Being investigated, discreetly. The traitor in Alejandro's organization." I shivered despite the warm night air. "Good." Alejandro clasped Marco's shoulder. "Be careful, old friend. You too, boss." Marco's eyes flicked to me. "Take care of her." With that, we boarded the plane. The interior was luxurious, all cream leather and polished wood, with a small seating area that converted to a bedroom in the rear. A steward greeted us, offering champagne, which I declined in favor of water. My nerves were frayed enough without alcohol. We were airborne within minutes, the city lights receding below us. I watched them fade, a strange hollowness settling in my chest. Everything I'd known was down there. My apartment, my job, the life I'd built for myself after my parents' death, all left behind with barely a goodbye. "Second thoughts?" Alejandro asked, studying my face. "No," I said, surprised to find it was true, just processing. He nodded, understanding in his eyes. "It's a lot to take in. A week ago, you were a nurse at Mercy General with a normal life. Now you're flying to Italy with a man most people consider dangerous. Most people don't know you like I do." A smile touched his lips. "And how is that? How do you see me, Ellie Morgan?" I considered the question. How did I see Alejandro Russo? The dangerous Mafia boss who had upended my life. The protector who had saved me from Kazan. The man whose touch sent electricity through my veins. I see someone who could have walked away when he realized I wasn't involved with Petrov, but didn't. Someone who's been trying to right the wrongs of the past, his father's, my father's. Someone who looks at me like... I paused, feeling heat rise to my cheeks. "Like what?" he prompted, his voice low, intense, like I'm something precious, something worth protecting, even at great cost. He reached across the space between us, taking my hand. "You are." The simple declaration stole my breath. In that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that I'd made the right choice. Whatever dangers lay ahead, whatever adjustments I would need to make to fit into Alejandro's world, they were worth it for this, the connection between us that defied logic or explanation. "Tell me about Italy," I said, needing to change the subject before the intensity of my emotions overwhelmed me. "About your home there." His expression softened. "It's been in my family for generations. A villa in the hills outside Naples, overlooking the Mediterranean. Olive groves, vineyards, gardens that my mother once tended herself." A shadow crossed his face at the mention of his mother. "You'll have your own suite of rooms, of course. Privacy when you need it. That's thoughtful." I tried to hide my disappointment. I had assumed we would share quarters, given the development of our relationship. But unnecessary. His eyes darkened. "Ellie." "Unless I misunderstood what's happening between us," I continued, emboldened by the privacy of the jet, the knowledge that we were suspended between worlds. My old life behind us, our new one not yet begun. "You didn't misunderstand." His voice was rough with restraint. "But I meant what I said about doing this properly. You'll have your own space, your own freedom to move about the estate, to decide if I am what you truly want. I've already decided." I moved to sit beside him, close enough that our thighs touched. "I'm here, aren't I? You're here because it's safer than staying behind." I shook my head. "I'm here because I choose to be. Because when you look at me, I feel seen in a way no one else has ever managed. Because when you touch me," I placed my hand on his, guiding it to my face, "I feel alive." His control visibly frayed, his eyes darkening as his thumb traced my lower lip. "You're playing with fire, Ellie. Maybe I want to burn." With a growl, he closed the distance between us, his mouth claiming mine with a hunger that matched my own. This wasn't like our previous kisses, careful, controlled. This was raw need, unleashed at last. My hands found their way into his hair, pulling him closer as his arms encircled me, lifting me effortlessly onto his lap. The feel of him beneath me, solid and warm, sent a wave of desire through me so intense it bordered on pain. "Ellie," he murmured against my throat, his lips tracing a path that made me gasp. "If we don't stop now, then don't stop," I breathed, pulling back just enough to meet his gaze. "I want this. I want you." For a moment, I thought he might refuse, might insist on his original plan of separate rooms and proper courtship. Then something shifted in his expression. A decision made, a barrier broken. "Mine," he growled, reclaiming my mouth as his hands explored the curves of my body with possessive intensity. What followed was a blur of sensation. Clothes discarded, skin against skin. The transformation of the seating area into a bed that seemed to happen by magic. Alejandro's touch was reverent yet demanding, drawing responses from my body I hadn't known I was capable of. "You're beautiful," he whispered, his accent thicker with desire, making the words sound like a prayer. In his arms I felt beautiful, powerful, cherished. Each caress erased more of the fear and uncertainty of the past week, replacing it with something new and exhilarating. The knowledge that I belonged to this man, and he to me, in a way that transcended the physical. Afterward, we lay tangled together, my head on his chest, his heartbeat strong and steady beneath my ear. His fingers traced lazy patterns on my bare shoulder as we soared through the night toward our new life. "What are you thinking?" he asked, pressing a kiss to my temple. "That I never expected this," I admitted. "Any of it. A week ago, if someone had told me I'd be here, with you, you would have called them insane," he finished, amusement in his voice. "Probably." I smiled against his skin, and yet somehow it feels right. Like everything that happened. The wrong number, the flowers, the notes, finding my father's locket. It was all leading to this moment. His arms tightened around me. "I don't typically believe in fate, but with you..." He trailed off, seeming to search for words. "With you, I'm beginning to reconsider." We fell into comfortable silence, the hum of the jet engines and the steady rhythm of Alejandro's heartbeat lulling me towards sleep. Just as I was drifting off, a thought occurred to me. "Alejandro? What will happen to my job? My apartment?" He shifted, propping himself up on one elbow to look down at me. "Everything will be taken care of. Your apartment will be maintained, your position at the hospital held. If you decide to return someday, your life will be waiting for you." The implication was clear. He was still giving me an out, still ensuring I had options beyond him. The gesture was both touching and unnecessary. "I won't be going back," I said with certainty. "Not to that life." Something like relief flickered in his eyes. "Nevertheless, it will be there if you need it." I reached up, tracing the line of his jaw. "The only thing I need is you." He caught my hand, pressing a kiss to my palm. "And you have me, completely." As sleep finally claimed me, I felt a sense of peace that had eluded me for years. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, a new country, a new role in Alejandro's world. But for now, in his arms, I was exactly where I belonged. The next thing I knew, sunlight was streaming through the windows of the jet, and Alejandro was gently shaking me awake. "We're landing in 20 minutes, he said, already dressed in a fresh suit that made him look every inch the powerful businessman. "Time to prepare for your first day in Italy." I sat up, clutching the sheet to my chest, suddenly self-conscious in the morning light. A silk robe lay across the foot of the bed, which I gratefully slipped into. "There's a shower in the bathroom," Alejandro said, gesturing to a door I hadn't noticed before. "Fresh clothes have been laid out for you." Sure enough, I found an outfit that looked both elegant and comfortable. Designer jeans, a cashmere sweater in a shade of green that matched my eyes, and soft leather boots, all in my size, all things I would have chosen for myself. "How did you know my size?" I asked when I emerged, dressed and somewhat refreshed. Alejandro's smile was enigmatic. "I make it my business to know everything about you, Ellie Morgan." Under other circumstances, such a statement might have seemed controlling, even creepy, but after everything we'd been through, it felt like protection, like care. As the jet began its descent, Alejandro came to stand beside me at the window, his hand at the small of my back. "Welcome to Italy," he said softly, as the coastline came into view, the Mediterranean glittering like sapphires in the morning sun. "Welcome home." Naples was a revelation, a city of contradictions, where ancient history and modernity collided in a riot of color, sound, and scent. As our convoy of black SUVs wound through narrow streets toward the hills beyond the city, I pressed my face to the window, trying to absorb everything at once. "You like it?" Alejandro asked, amusement coloring his voice. "It's beautiful," I breathed. "So different from home." "The difference is part of the appeal," he said. "Distance creates safety. Always practical, always thinking of security." I was beginning to understand that this hypervigilance was as much a part of Alejandro as his dark eyes or the slight accent that emerged when he was tired or passionate. The city gave way to countryside, rolling hills covered with vineyards and olive groves, punctuated by cypress trees that stood like sentinels against the azure sky. After about an hour's drive, we turned onto a private road that climbed steadily upward, eventually passing through imposing iron gates manned by guards who snapped to attention at our approach. "Your security is thorough," I observed as we continued up a winding driveway lined with ancient trees. "My family has many enemies," Alejandro replied simply. "Some inherited, some earned." The driveway opened onto a circular courtyard, and I got my first glimpse of what Alejandro had modestly called a villa. The house, no, estate was more accurate, was magnificent. Built of golden stone that glowed in the midday sun, it sprawled across the hilltop, its multiple wings and terraces commanding views in every direction. Fountains played in the courtyard, the sound of water creating an oasis of calm. "This is yours?" I whispered, awestruck. "Ours," he corrected, his hand finding mine. "For as long as you choose to stay." As we stepped from the car, the massive double doors at the entrance opened, and an older woman emerged. She was small, but carried herself with dignity, her silver hair pulled back in an elegant knot. Her dark eyes, so like Alejandro's, missing nothing. "Nonna." Alejandro greeted her warmly in Italian, embracing her with genuine affection before switching to English. "This is Ellie Morgan. Ellie. My grandmother, Isabella Russo." I extended my hand, but Isabella bypassed it entirely, pulling me into a surprising embrace. "So this is the woman who has captured my grandson's heart," she said, her English accented but perfect. "Welcome to our home, Ellie Morgan." "Thank you for having me," I replied, somewhat overwhelmed by the warmth of her greeting. "Having you? Pah." She waved a dismissive hand. "You are family now. Come, you must be exhausted after your journey. Food first, then rest." She turned, leading us into the house with the expectation of being followed that only the very powerful or the very old can command. Alejandro's hand at the small of my back guided me forward. The interior of the villa was as impressive as the exterior. Soaring ceilings, marble floors, artwork that belonged in museums rather than private homes. Yet despite its grandeur, it felt lived in, cared for. We were led to a terrace overlooking the sea, where a table was set for lunch. The view was breathtaking, the Mediterranean stretching to the horizon, the islands of Capri and Ischia visible in the distance. "Sit, sit," Isabella insisted, taking her place at the head of the table. "Alejandro, pour the wine. The girl looks like she needs it." I smiled despite myself. There was something refreshing about Isabella's directness after days of tension and careful words. Lunch was a feast. Fresh seafood, pasta dressed simply with olive oil and herbs, bread still warm from the oven, and wine that tasted of sunshine and earth. As we ate, Isabella regaled me with stories of Alejandro as a child, much to his apparent discomfort. "He was always so serious," she told me, eyes twinkling. "Even at 5 years old, frowning at his picture books as if they contained the secrets of the universe." "Nonna," Alejandro protested mildly, but I could see the affection in his eyes. "What? I embarrass you?" She turned to me. "He needs embarrassing sometimes. Too much power, too young. It's not good for a man." I couldn't help but laugh, both at her frankness and at the sight of Alejandro Russo, feared Mafia boss, the man who had faced down Kazan without flinching, being scolded like a schoolboy by his grandmother. After lunch, Alejandro excused himself to make phone calls, leaving me in Isabella's capable hands. She insisted on showing me to my rooms personally, leading me through corridors lined with family portraits. "Here," she said, opening a door to reveal a suite that took my breath away. A sitting room with French doors opened onto a private balcony overlooking the sea. Beyond that, I glimpsed a bedroom with a massive four-poster bed and an adjoining bathroom with a tub that could comfortably fit two. "It's beautiful," I said sincerely. Isabella nodded, pleased. It was my daughter-in-law's favorite room. Alejandro's mother. A shadow crossed her face. "She would approve of you, I think." "What was she like?" I asked, curious about the woman who had raised Alejandro. Isabella moved to the balcony, gazing out at the sea. Francesca was light. In a world of darkness, she brought joy, laughter. She turned to me. "My son Antonio loved her beyond reason. When she died, cancer, so quick, so cruel, something in him broke. He became harder, more ruthless." She shook her head. Alejandro was 14, old enough to understand what he was losing, young enough to still need his mother desperately. My heart ached for the teenage boy who had lost his mother, only to lose his father a few years later. "I'm sorry." "Life gives us sorrow," Isabella said philosophically, "but also joy, if we are wise enough to recognize it." Her dark eyes, so like her grandson's, studied me intently. "You have known sorrow too, yes?" "Alejandro told me about your parents." I nodded, touching the locket still around my neck. "Yes. Perhaps that is why he feels such a connection to you. Shared pain can create powerful bonds." She patted my hand. "Rest now. Dinner is at 8. Alejandro will come for you." With that, she left me alone to explore my new accommodations. The bathroom was a marvel of Italian design, all marble and gold fixtures, with a shower that had multiple heads and a tub deep enough to swim in. The closet was already filled with clothes in my size, many still with tags attached. Everything from casual wear to formal gowns, all in colors and styles I would have chosen myself. Exhaustion finally catching up with me, I decided to take Isabella's advice and rest. The bed was cloud-soft, the sheets Egyptian cotton. I sank into it gratefully, intending only to close my eyes for a moment. I woke to the feeling of being watched. Opening my eyes, I found Alejandro seated in a chair beside the bed, his expression unreadable in the fading light. "How long have you been there?" I asked, my voice husky with sleep. "Not long." He leaned forward, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "You looked peaceful. I didn't want to wake you." I sat up, suddenly aware of my rumpled appearance. "What time is it?" "Almost 7. There's time to prepare for dinner." His eyes traveled over me, warm with appreciation, "though I find you perfectly beautiful as you are." Heat bloomed in my cheeks. Even after our night on the plane, his intensity still had the power to unsettle me. "I should shower," I said, slipping from the bed. "Will there be others at dinner? Just us and Nonna?" He stood, moving to the windows to draw the curtains as darkness fell. "She likes you." "I like her too." I paused at the bathroom door. "She told me about your mother. I'm sorry, Alejandro." His back stiffened slightly. "Nonna talks too much. Or perhaps just enough." I crossed to him, placing a hand on his arm. "It helps me understand you better." He turned, cupping my face in his hands. "And do you want to understand me, Ellie? All of me, even the parts that might frighten you?" "Yes," I said simply. "I can't be part of your world without knowing it. Without knowing you." Something shifted in his eyes, relief, perhaps, or respect. "Then I will show you. Not all at once. Some truths are better absorbed slowly. But I won't shield you from reality." "Thank you." I stretched up to kiss him lightly. "Now, I really should get ready." He smiled, releasing me reluctantly. "I'll return in 45 minutes to escort you to dinner." True to his word, Alejandro knocked precisely 3/4 of an hour later. I'd chosen a simple black dress from the collection in my closet, elegant without being overly formal. His appreciative gaze as I opened the door told me I'd selected well. "You look beautiful," he said, offering his arm. Dinner was served in a smaller, more intimate dining room than I'd expected. Candles provided most of the illumination, glinting off crystal and silver. Isabella, resplendent in deep burgundy, presided over the meal with the grace of a queen. The conversation flowed easily, ranging from Italian politics, which I understood little of, to American healthcare, which I knew intimately, to art, literature, and music. I was surprised by the breadth of Alejandro's knowledge. He spoke intelligently on every topic, revealing a depth of education I hadn't fully appreciated before. As we lingered over dessert and coffee, Isabella fixed her grandson with a penetrating stare. "Have you told her about the meeting tomorrow?" Alejandro's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. "I was planning to discuss it privately, Nonna." "Pah!" She waved a dismissive hand. "No secrets between lovers. It's unhealthy." I looked between them, curious. "What meeting?" Alejandro sighed, shooting his grandmother a look that was half exasperation, half fondness. "The heads of the 5 main families in southern Italy are coming here tomorrow. A courtesy call officially, to welcome me back and introduce you." "Introduce me?" I repeated, suddenly nervous. Why would they care about meeting me? Isabella and Alejandro exchanged a glance loaded with meaning. "Because," Isabella said, when her grandson remained silent, "you are Alejandro's chosen woman. In our world, that makes you significant." "It's just a formality," Alejandro added quickly, seeing my expression. "Nothing to concern yourself with," but I could tell from the tension in his shoulders that it was more than a formality. These people, other Mafia leaders, I presumed, were coming to assess me, to determine if I was a weakness in Alejandro's armor. "What do I need to know?" I asked, setting down my coffee cup. "How should I behave?" Alejandro looked surprised, then pleased by my direct approach. "You'll be expected to be gracious but reserved. These men respect strength, dignity. They'll watch how you carry yourself, how you interact with me. They'll be looking for weakness," I guessed. "Yes," he admitted. "In both of us." "Then we won't show them any." I reached across the table, taking his hand. "Tell me everything I need to know, Alejandro. I won't embarrass you." A slow smile spread across his face. "You could never embarrass me, Ellie. But I appreciate your willingness to learn our ways." Isabella nodded approvingly. "She has spirit, this one. Good. You need a woman who will stand beside you, not behind you." After dinner, Alejandro suggested a walk in the gardens. The night was warm, the air heavy with the scent of jasmine and salt from the sea below. Security personnel maintained a discreet distance as we strolled along paths lit by strategically placed lamps. "Are you happy here?" Alejandro asked suddenly. The question caught me off guard. "It's been less than a day," I pointed out. "But yes, so far I'm content." "Just content?" He stopped, turning to face me. "If there's anything you need, anything at all." I silenced him with a finger to his lips. "I have everything I need. It's just overwhelming. This place, your grandmother, tomorrow's meeting. A week ago I was changing bedpans and administering medications. Now I'm living in an Italian villa, about to be presented to Mafia dons like some kind of princess?" he supplied, amusement touching his lips. "I was going to say prized possession," I corrected, but couldn't help smiling. "Never that." His expression sobered. "You're not a possession, Ellie. You're my partner. My equal." The declaration warmed me from within. "Even in your world? Where men seem to hold all the power, especially in my world." He took my hands in his. "The strongest leaders have strong women beside them. My father had my mother. When he lost her, he lost his center, his balance. I won't make that mistake." I understood then what he was really saying, that I wasn't just a woman he desired, but someone he saw as essential to his future, his stability. The realization was both terrifying and exhilarating. "I should warn you," I said, trying to lighten the suddenly heavy atmosphere. "I know nothing about being a Mafia princess." He laughed, a rare, genuine sound that transformed his face. "Good thing I'm not looking for a princess. Just you, Ellie Morgan, exactly as you are." He pulled me into his arms then, his mouth finding mine in a kiss that burned away my remaining doubts and fears. In that moment, under the Italian stars with the scent of jasmine surrounding us, I knew I was exactly where I was meant to be. The morning of the meeting dawned bright and clear, sunlight streaming through the windows as I prepared myself for what lay ahead. Alejandro had briefed me thoroughly the night before. The names and backgrounds of each family head who would attend, their relationships with the Russos, what would be expected of me. "Remember," he'd said as we parted at my door, "they will be watching for any sign of weakness, any hint that my judgment has been compromised by my feelings for you." "And has it?" I'd asked, only half joking. His expression had turned serious. "My judgment has never been clearer than since I found you." Now, as I dressed in a conservative but elegant navy dress Alejandro had suggested, I tried to calm my nerves. These men represented a world I was only beginning to understand, a world of power, loyalty, and violence cloaked in tradition and respect. A soft knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. I opened it to find not Alejandro, but Isabella, elegant in a charcoal gray suit that somehow emphasized rather than diminished her femininity. "May I come in?" she asked. "Of course." I stepped aside, wondering what had brought her to my room. She entered, her keen eyes taking in my appearance with approval. "You look appropriate. Good." She moved to the dressing table, opening a small velvet box I hadn't noticed her carrying. "But you need this." Inside the box lay a necklace, a single teardrop diamond suspended from a platinum chain, simple yet breathtaking in its clarity and fire. "I can't accept," I began. "It's not a gift," Isabella interrupted briskly. "It's a statement. In our world, appearances matter. The women who stand beside men of power must reflect that power." She removed the necklace from its box. "Turn around." Somewhat dazed, I complied. Her fingers were cool against my skin as she fastened the clasp. "There," she said with satisfaction. "Now you look like a Russo woman." I touched the diamond, which rested just above my father's locket. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet." Her expression turned serious. "Today will not be easy. These men, they will test you, test Alejandro through you. You must be strong, dignified. Show no fear, no doubt. I understand." She studied me, seeming to look beyond my carefully composed expression. "Perhaps you do. Your father, he prepared you better than he knew." The mention of my father caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" "James Morgan was not a man to do things by half measures," Isabella said cryptically. "He kept secrets from you to protect you, yes, but he also raised you to be resilient, independent. Qualities Alejandro needs in a partner." Before I could question her further, another knock sounded. Alejandro this time, dressed in an impeccably tailored suit that emphasized his broad shoulders and lean strength. He looked every inch the powerful Don, except for the warmth that entered his eyes when he saw me. "You're wearing the necklace," he observed, gaze moving from the diamond to his grandmother. "She looks like a Russo woman now, yes?" Isabella said with satisfaction. "She looked like a Russo woman before," Alejandro replied, his eyes never leaving mine. "The diamond merely confirms what I already knew." My heart fluttered at the implication that I belonged with him, belonged to his family, even without external symbols. "The guests have begun to arrive," he said, offering his arm. "Shall we?" We descended to the grand salon, where staff were putting finishing touches on an elaborate buffet. Security personnel were positioned discreetly throughout the room, and visible through windows patrolling the grounds. "Stay by my side," Alejandro murmured, as we took our position near the entrance. "Let me introduce you. Speak when spoken to, but otherwise observe. These first impressions will shape how they view you, and us, going forward." I nodded, grateful for his guidance even as I resented the need for such calculated behavior. This was so far removed from my life as a nurse, where directness and honesty were valued above political maneuvering. The first arrivals were the Valenti family, Giancarlo, a silver-haired man with shrewd eyes, and his son Paolo, who seemed about Alejandro's age. I recalled from Alejandro's briefing that this was the family of his former fiancée, Sofia Valentini. "Alejandro, my boy," Giancarlo greeted him with the false warmth of a career politician. "Too long since you've graced us with your presence in Italy. Business in America required my personal attention," Alejandro replied smoothly. "Giancarlo, Paolo, may I present Ellie Morgan?" I extended my hand as instructed, maintaining eye contact with each man in turn. "A pleasure to meet you." Giancarlo's handshake was firm, his assessment of me swift and calculating. "American. A bold choice, Alejandro. The heart wants what it wants," Alejandro replied, his tone light, but his eyes watchful. Paolo's gaze lingered a moment too long on the diamond at my throat. "Isabella's necklace," he observed. "A family heirloom," I felt rather than saw Alejandro tense beside me. My grandmother thought it appropriate. The implied message wasn't lost on the Valentis. Whatever had happened between Alejandro and Sofia Valenti, the Russo family had clearly moved on, and elevated me to a position of significance. The other families arrived in quick succession: the Martinos, the Romanos, the Calabrases, and finally the Fieros, headed by an elderly man who moved with the careful precision of someone in constant pain, but too proud to show it. "Don Fiero," Alejandro greeted him with particular respect. "I'm honored you made the journey. I would not miss welcoming Antonio's son home," the old man replied, his eyes sharp despite his frailty. "Nor meeting the woman who has captured his heart." He turned to me, and I was startled by the intensity of his gaze, as if he could see through my carefully composed exterior to the uncertainty beneath. "Miss Morgan," he said, taking my hand in his papery one. "I knew your father." The statement sent a shock through me. I managed to keep my expression neutral, but I felt Alejandro's hand tighten at my waist. "You have his eyes," Don Fiero continued, "and I suspect his courage." "Thank you," I replied, finding my voice. "It's a pleasure to meet a friend of my father's." Don Fiero's lips twitched in what might have been amusement. Friend might be too strong a word. We had mutual interests, shall we say. His death was regrettable. "Perhaps we could discuss this another time," Alejandro suggested smoothly, his tone pleasant but his meaning clear. Of course. Don Fiero patted my hand before releasing it. "We will have time for many conversations, I think." As brunch progressed, I found myself the object of intense scrutiny. The women, wives and daughters of the family heads, were particularly interested, their questions seemingly innocent, but designed to expose any ignorance or weakness. "And how are you finding Italy, Ellie?" Francesca Martino asked, her smile not reaching her eyes. "Such a change from America, especially for a nurse, was it?" "Italy is magnificent," I replied. "As for the change, adaptation has always been one of my strengths." "Indeed?" Her perfectly shaped eyebrow arched. "And how does one adapt from saving lives to our world?" I met her gaze steadily. "By recognizing that power, when wielded responsibly, can protect as well as harm. My goal has always been to protect the vulnerable. The methods may change, but the principle remains the same." From across the room, I caught Alejandro watching me, approval in his eyes. I'd passed this small test at least. The real challenge came later, when the men retreated to Alejandro's study for cigars and more serious conversation, and I found myself alone with Isabella and the other women on the terrace. "So tell us, Ellie," Francesca began again, clearly appointed as interrogator. "How exactly did you and Alejandro meet? It all seems so sudden." I hesitated, unsure how much Alejandro wanted revealed about Kazan and the hard drive. Before I could formulate a response, Isabella intervened. "Some meetings are written in the stars," she said dismissively. "Fate has its own timeline." "Perhaps," Francesca persisted. "But one wonders about the coincidence. Alejandro returns to Italy with an American nurse, just as his influence in the States is being consolidated. Just as certain or problematic elements there are being eliminated." My blood ran cold. She was referring to Kazan's organization, which meant news of its dismantling had already reached Italy. The question was whether they knew of my connection to it. "Are you suggesting I'm some kind of strategic alliance?" I asked, deciding directness was my best defense. Francesca smiled, cat-like. "Aren't all relationships in our world to some degree?" "Not all," I replied, thinking of the passion I shared with Alejandro, the connection that had nothing to do with business or power. "Some are simply about two people who recognize something in each other that they've been searching for all their lives." "How romantic," Francesca said, her tone making the word an insult. Yes, I agreed, meeting her gaze steadily. It is. A soft laugh from Isabella broke the tension. Enough, Francesca. You've made your point, and Ellie has made hers. Let us enjoy this beautiful day without turning it into an interrogation. Francesca subsided, but her eyes promised this wasn't the end of her interest in me. I had made an enemy, or at least a wary observer. When the men rejoined us, I could tell immediately that something had changed. Alejandro's expression was composed, but there was a tension in his shoulders that hadn't been there before. The other dons regarded me with new interest, some speculative, some respectful. What happened? I murmured when Alejandro came to stand beside me. Later, he replied softly. Smile now. The worst is over. I did as he asked, moving through the remainder of the gathering with practiced ease, saying the right things, playing the role of gracious hostess alongside Isabella. But my mind was racing, wondering what had transpired in that closed-door meeting, what decisions had been made that might affect our future. As the last guest departed, I felt exhaustion washing over me. The constant vigilance, the need to weigh every word and gesture, had taken a greater toll than I'd realized. You were magnificent, Alejandro said as we watched the final car disappear down the driveway. They respect you. Not all of them, I replied, thinking of Francesca's barely veiled hostility. Enough of them. He led me back inside, through the now quiet house to a small private study I hadn't seen before. Unlike the grand salon where the meeting had taken place, this room felt personal, books well worn from reading, a chess set mid-game, photographs in simple frames. Your sanctuary? I guessed. One of them. He poured 2 glasses of amber liquid, handing one to me. The other is wherever you are. The simple declaration warmed me more than the whiskey as I took a small sip. What happened in the meeting, Alejandro? Something changed. He sighed, setting down his glass and moving to the window. Kazan's organization has collapsed faster than anticipated. The federal prosecutors I sent the evidence to moved quickly. Arrests across 3 states, assets frozen, operations shut down. That's good news, isn't it? Yes and no. He turned to face me. It's created a vacuum, one that multiple interests are eager to fill. Including yours? A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Including mine. But also including some of the men who were here today. The American market is lucrative. I began to understand. They wanted your blessing to move in on Kazan's territory. Some did. Others wanted assurances that I wouldn't interfere with their plans. He took another sip of whiskey, and all of them wanted to know your role in it. My heart skipped a beat. They know about my father? About the hard drive? Rumors have spread. Don Fierro's comment about knowing your father wasn't coincidental. Alejandro moved closer, taking my hand. I told them the truth, that you are the daughter of a man who was wronged, who helped bring down the organization responsible for your parents' deaths, and who now stands with me as I build something new. And they accepted that? They respected it. His thumb traced circles on my palm. In our world, vengeance is understood. Honor is respected. And loyalty... His eyes met mine. Loyalty is everything. I absorbed this, understanding more clearly now what my choice to stay with Alejandro truly meant. I wasn't just choosing a man, a relationship. I was choosing a world with its own rules, its own morality. A world where violence and tenderness, cruelty and honor could coexist. There's something else, Alejandro said, his expression turning serious. Don Fierro had a proposal, a way to cement your place in our world, to ensure your protection even if something were to happen to me. A chill ran through me. What kind of proposal? Marriage. The word hung in the air between us. A formal union between us, recognized by all the families. It would give you status, protection, legitimacy. Is that what you want? I asked carefully, uncertain whether this was a business proposition or something more. Alejandro set down his glass, taking both my hands in his. What I want, Ellie Morgan, is to wake up beside you every morning for the rest of my life. To build something lasting with you, something that honors what our fathers tried to achieve but goes beyond it. A legacy of our own. My heart stuttered. Are you proposing to me because Don Fierro suggested it, or because you want to? A smile. genuine, warm, transformed his face. "I've wanted to make you mine since the moment I heard your voice on the phone. Everything since then has only confirmed what I somehow knew that night, that you were meant to be part of my life, my future." He dropped to one knee, still holding my hands. "Marry me, Ellie. Not for protection, not for status, but because I love you. Because from the moment you answered that wrong number, you've been the right answer to every question I never knew to ask." Tears welled in my eyes, unexpected and unstoppable. In that moment, all the doubts, all the fears about the world I was entering fell away. What remained was the certainty that this man, complicated, dangerous, honorable, was offering me something real, something true. "Yes," I whispered, then louder. "Yes, Alejandro. I'll marry you." He rose, pulling me into his arms, his mouth finding mine in a kiss that sealed our promise. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. "I've been carrying this since Naples," he admitted, opening it to reveal a ring, an emerald the exact shade of my eyes, flanked by diamonds that caught the late afternoon light streaming through the windows. "It's beautiful," I breathed as he slipped it onto my finger. "It was my mother's," he said softly. "My grandmother gave it to me before she died. Told me to save it for the woman who would bring light back into our family." The significance of the gesture wasn't lost on me. This wasn't just a ring, it was acceptance, inclusion, a place in the Russo legacy. 3 months later, we were married in the villa's private chapel, with Isabella presiding like a queen over the proceedings. The heads of all 5 families attended, their presence both a blessing and a recognition of the new power structure Alejandro was creating. Don Fierro, frailer than ever but still sharp-eyed, approached me at the reception. "Your father would be proud," he said, patting my hand. "He wanted a better world for you. Perhaps this is not what he imagined, but it is better nonetheless." "Thank you," I said, curious about this man who seemed to have known my father in ways I never had. "Someday. I hope you'll tell me more about him someday," he agreed. "When the time is right." As promised, Alejandro had shown me his world gradually. The legitimate businesses he was expanding, the charitable foundations he supported, but also the darker aspects of his power. I'd watched him negotiate disputes between rival factions, seen the respect and fear he commanded. And I'd begun to find my own place within this world, not just as Alejandro's wife, but as a force in my own right. With Isabella's guidance, I'd established a medical foundation that provided care to communities throughout southern Italy. My nursing skills found new purpose, and my understanding of Alejandro's world gave me insight into needs others might miss. 6 months after our wedding, as we stood on our bedroom balcony watching the sunset over the Mediterranean, Alejandro wrapped his arms around me from behind, his hand resting protectively over my slightly rounded belly. "Are you happy?" he asked, his breath warm against my ear. I leaned back against him, my hand covering his, happier than I ever thought possible. It was true. The journey that had begun with a wrong number in the middle of the night had led me to a life I could never have imagined, filled with privilege and responsibility, danger and protection, power and, most surprisingly, purpose. "Our child will never know the pain we did," Alejandro murmured, his voice fierce with promise. "Never know what it is to lose parents too young, to face the world alone." "No," I agreed, turning in his arms to face him. "Our child will know only strength and love and family." His hand cupped my face, his expression solemn. "I will keep you both safe, always." "I know." I reached up, tracing the line of his jaw. "And I will stand beside you, always." As the last light faded from the sky, Alejandro kissed me, gentle at first, then with increasing passion. In his arms I found the home I'd been searching for since that terrible night when my parents died. A home built not of walls and rooms, but of love and trust, of shared purpose and mutual protection. The wrong number had led me to the right man, the right life, the right future. And as Alejandro led me back inside, to our bed, and the promise of tomorrow, I knew with absolute certainty that I wouldn't change a single moment of the journey that had brought us here. For in finding Alejandro, I had found not just love, but myself, the woman I was always meant to be, strong, resilient, loved. And finally, completely home.